All right, guys, I will not be defeated. This is take 2 of the kickoff of our Parents series, Parents Circle, Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock UK, where we talk about the science of health and human potential. I just did one of these, and it's not the first time that Substack and the audio have not been copacetic. So if you just got an email from me with no audio, I'm going to hope that this one has all the audio because this is such an important conversation, and we will do as many takes as it takes to make it happen. We were also live on Facebook, so if you do follow us on Facebook, we'll be live there as well. I'm really excited about this new series because we get so many questions from parents around the world related to brain science, exercise science, and I thought if we did a 20-minute talk with some Q&A time every day, that it could lead up to a really great archive and a really cool resource for parents around the world. So today we're starting with the science of attention. If there's one thing that parents continue to write us, especially this time of year, as September approaches, so many parents are concerned that their active, curious, energetic kids are going to be labeled with attention disorders in the school system or pushed from the school system to be labels, and they're concerned about it. I'm going to do a whole extra episode on the history of the idea that attention can live in a diagnostic category. It's a whole other conversation. It requires an entire day's worth of, or at least an entire episode, to dive into how we've come to believe that the most individual element of the self, because what you find interesting and what you attend to is the ultimate representation of you as an individual. It is the most unique thing about you, and it is a portal into what you are here to do in your life. So if you look at the work of every genius, every maverick, you hear the same story. I learned to filter out 99% of things that didn't interest me, and I went all in on the 1% of things that did in this world, and I became a great musician, poet, philosopher, engineer, entrepreneur, innovator, scientist, problem solver. You only hear that story on the other side of world-class performance. We have to remember that the school system was not built around world-class performance and ultimate human potential. It was built to create factory workers and to create soldiers. And in both categories, the person who could listen and point their attention to where it was directed, as opposed to where it was internally oriented, was celebrated, rewarded, and deemed necessary in society. Now, society is changing fast. AI is changing the world fast. The job of the human being in the AI economy, in a world of automation, is shifting fast. So what we have to ask ourselves is, are we talking about attention or obedience? Because they are different things. I don't know a single young person, and I work with lots of them, and I have for 10 years, who doesn't find many things about this fascinating world that we live in interesting. And they can attend to those things with great focus. The question is whether I can point to a rock or a blackboard or the ceiling and say, I want you to find that interesting now. And whether or not they can do that is what they're being judged on by the school system. We have to be able to separate out what is a philosophical question, which is where should people point their attention, and what is the neuroscience and physiology of attention. And then we need to mesh those two things into a cohesive model that benefits our kids and society and the future, but especially our kids. So attention is simply what I choose to attend to. There are lots of things that you could be attending to. If you're watching this, you're choosing this. Thank you. There's a million things competing for your attention, and attention individually is us finding a signal in the noise. Not the signal, because what you're interested in, what I'm interested in, and what your kids are interested in is different. Finding a signal. So you scroll on social media, you scroll past 99% of content, you don't even pay attention. Something is a signal to you. Maybe you love jazz guitar. You're scrolling, you see a jazz guitarist, you stop, they're mind-blowing, you follow their page. It's caught your attention because you're an individual. There's no cohesive idea of what all people should point their attention towards, which is why the idea of an attention disorder or deficit is just illogical, and we're going to talk about why it's illogical and where it originates from. But I want to just put in a box that attention is what we choose to attend to. It's a busy, noisy, distracting world. And that's more true for kids than anyone, because they're kids and they're still finding out what they are interested in. And the world is still exciting. You know, when you work with a young person, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and teens, They're still interested in the changing of the seasons, how people are social behavior, what the cat across the street is doing. Life is interesting inherently. You never get to a point where life becomes uninteresting. I can't imagine what a terrible place that must be, where all of the beautiful things that are happening in the world are just uninteresting and you're numb to it all. So kids are not only trying to find the signal in the noise, there's a lot more noise and a lot more potential signals, because everything is interesting, except maybe the thing that they're being pointed towards and told to pay attention to. So if we can't separate out attention from obedience, follow what you're interested in, follow what I tell you, we're going to have a very convoluted conversation. And when that conversation starts to introduce pharmacological drugs, it starts to introduce labeling, diagnosis, and medication that has long-term physical and psychological costs associated, now we're having a really troubling conversation about the future. And we can unpack this in future episodes. But today I want to separate out that attention is what we choose to attend to. And then in order to do that, or what we're told to attend to, what we choose or what we're told. You as a parent have to figure out which one you want your kid to do. And you want them to do some of both, right? If they only did what they're passionate about and they never did anything you told them to, that wouldn't be an optimal world. But we have to figure out that blend of that intuitive genius gift in your kid. They're attending to it. They want to be something great in a field, a specific domain. And they're told, well, not important, go be a generalist. Will that be the path to economic fulfillment, personal fulfillment, success, happiness? You have to ask yourself, well, how does AI shape the economy? What are the jobs of 2030? What does it mean to be a human in the digital age? You really have to know that, because then you as a parent can decide, no, I think whatever the teacher says, you should attend to that no matter how uninteresting you find it. That's your choice. Or no, I think what things interest you in the world are actually interesting to you because they're what you're here to do. That's your choice, but you have to cultivate one of those paths. Physiologically, attention has a foundation. That foundation is sleep, it's nutrition, and it's exercise, because attention isn't an abstract concept. If you're going to remember anything from this video, your brain has to release acetylcholine from the basal forebrain in order to imprint the memory. Otherwise, it'll disappear. You won't even say tomorrow, hey, I saw some guy on Substack or Facebook talking about attention. It just won't be there. It won't be there like the 99% of people and things that I've scrolled past on my phone yesterday. I don't remember them. They just didn't make it. It has to release acetylcholine. It has to release dopamine, norepinephrine, glutamate. There's an entire physiological cascade associated with focusing, paying attention, and retaining. Because ideally, learning is actually getting things into long-term storage, not just blowing by them. So we need that physiological foundation in place. So what impacts dopamine signaling, norepinephrine signaling, all of this? Well, sleep is the foundation, and then we have nutrition, and we have exercise, and we have sunlight. All of that these are the neural correlates for attention to be possible. When we look at sleep, sleep is where we wash the brain. I just did a series of curriculum pieces to our curriculum, additions to our curriculum, with one of our teenage students, 16 years old, brilliant, so fascinated by physiology. But we were talking about the fact that we aren't taught that sleep is where you wash the brain. Glymphatic fluid washes out the metabolic waste from the day. So if you could imagine a dirty sponge with dishwater, imagine you wash it out just a tiny bit, give it a little wring. You're going to have a dirty sponge. Now imagine you put it under hot water with soap and you've really wrung the thing out till it's almost a new sponge. You've washed the sponge. You wash your brain that way. And 7 in 10 teens, get insufficient sleep every day on a regular basis. So they've not washed the metabolic junk out of their brain. That's not going to make attention possible, even if they're focused on something they care about. Then you have exercise, which is where dopamine signaling, norepinephrine, all of the brain chemicals responsible for attention, focus, motivation, and mood, where the signaling is optimized. And social media and constant screening desensitizes dopamine receptors. That impacts the learning process. And finally, we have to get nutrients to the brain. We have to get oxygen to the brain. We have a brain, and it needs us to care for its health, like a lot. Like brain health will be the conversation, or one of the conversations of the century. But yet, instead of talking about brain health, when the brain health needs of kids aren't met, we put the word mental in front of health, and then we call natural physiological responses mental disorders, and that confuses everyone. So we have to ask, we really have to ask, what the word mental means, of an abstract idea, what a brain is as an organ that we can study and what it needs to be healthy. And we need to separate out where one should place their attention from how attention actually happens. So to wrap up this first installment, where we should put our attention is probably the clearest indicator of what we should focus on. When Albert Einstein's father gave him a compass at 5 years old, changed the course of his life. He's like, I'm going to focus on this. And he was famously disorganized in other areas of life, like building the theory of general relativity. It's like a lot of focus. He learned to focus on one thing or one area, ignore 99%. And the same is true for almost every author on my bookcase. I look at Nikola Tesla. I look at Jennifer Doudna, who created CRISPR. Genius is in a domain of singular focus, ignoring the noise. So if you're a parent and your child is focused on something and ignoring the noise, they may be cultivating a skill set more necessary than you could imagine in the AI age. I don't know, because I did this episode twice. Maybe I'm repeating myself this time. Maybe it was part of the last one. But I was working with a student at Oxford who recently graduated. And she said, she'd been pointed her attention towards everything she was told her entire academic life instead of what she was interested in. And she told me, there was no pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. I'm trying to get a job at Starbucks. I used to work as a tutor, but now my job is to tutor AI tutor companies to take my job as a tutor. Not awesome. So if she feels anxious and maybe lied to and misled, that's completely accurate. So you need to separate out as a parent, we engage in the conversations. Maybe we can be helpful in community with other parents. But should kids focus on what's in their heart and what captures their interest naturally, or should we force their focus on other things? A. And then B, are the physiological foundations for focus in place? Exercise, sunlight, sleep, nutrition. Otherwise, you're asking the child to fight their physiology. They say pay attention for a reason, and the reason it has a cost. The reason is it has a cost. If I ask you right now for $1,000, I say, wire $1,000 to the Substack, and you can't, but you want to, you don't have a financial disorder, you just don't have the funds to do it, even if you wanted to. Attention has a cost. That cost is dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, glutamate. It's a physiological foundation and expenditure. That has to be in place. And when the physiology is in place, which is why we call this physiology first, you can choose where you're going to focus and spend it. And you can spend it on things that light your heart up or things that you're told to. Again, that's a philosophical discussion, but the physiology has to come first. So send in any questions. I'm going to do one of these every day, noontime UK, Monday through Friday, a different topic. And assuming that this one came out with sound, that would be the goal. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you send notes with questions. And if it doesn't come out with sound, damn it, I'll do it again. So figuring out the Substack sound system, it always comes out good except for lives. So thank you all for tuning in. And I really look forward to your questions and to building a community through the Parent Circle.